Hi, friends. Welcome back to another podcast. This is Whoop with Jen, and I am really lucky to have another guest here today, my friend Jessica, who I met because our daughters started adaptive and recreational horseback, therapeutic riding, all those words in one. How long ago?
Oh, gosh. How long have they known each other? I know Emma's been riding for 8 years.
I think Elle started not long after that, and they used to have solo lessons, but their instructor put them together because she found that the girls actually did better when they had a pal to ride with. So welcome, Jessica.
Yeah, great to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here today. I think we have a very important topic to discuss.
It's a hot topic.
Marijuana.
Da, da, da.
Cannabis. Da, da, da.
Devil's weed.
You have a journey that you've been on. Tell us a little bit about Emma.
Yeah, so Emma's 15 years old. She was born perfectly healthy. At 4 months, she was diagnosed with a condition called optic nerve hypoplasia. At 2 years, she was... we found out more about that diagnosis when she went into adrenal crisis. Her body started shutting down. Her blood sugar was 11. And then shortly after that and an extensive hospital stay, she developed seizures. And so she's been having seizures since she was age 2. They varied in intensity and frequency, but when she was about 9 years old, they were at their worst. She was having about 4 to 7 seizures per day. Oh. And her epileptologist wanted to talk about brain surgery, and I was just not ready to discuss that. It was not an option in my book. And no offense to anyone who has gone down that road or has considered it, it just simply wasn't an option for me at that time.
Well, it's a terrifying option.
It's a terrifying option. I wasn't ready to wrap my head around that. And at the same time, I had friends randomly coming up to me and saying, asking me to look into cannabis, and I had never ever considered cannabis as a tool for seizures. I'd never heard about that. In fact, we're in Arizona, and medical cannabis became legal in 2010. My husband and I voted against it because we didn't see any medical purpose for cannabis. And so this was definitely a stretch, to say the least. This was in 2012, I guess, that we were looking into this.
So I just want to, just highlight the fact that it's people and it's friends who know you and your daughter and your family and what you're going through, but not a licensed medical physician bringing this to your attention, which is, such a part of the journey that we have as parents, in that these doctors aren't going to school and learning alternative treatments. And I don't know, I always felt frustrated when I would find out things on my own, and I'm like, what is my insurance paying you for? So I'm grateful that you had friends that felt confident enough to bring up that topic, which is a sensitive subject, but they obviously care enough about you and Emma's health to bring that up.
They did, and I'm so appreciative of that. And so when I was thinking, okay, well, I've got brain surgery on one end of the spectrum or weed on the other end of the spectrum. I mean, you can't get further apart than that.
That sounds like a Netflix sitcom.
I know. That's what
brain surgery or weed.
Yeah, brain surgery or weed. It obviously was a no-brainer, and I decided to look into cannabis. And actually, I found Dr. Sanjay Gupta's Weed series on CNN. And if you have not heard about that or seen it, I highly recommend looking into that. And he's got 4 episodes. The first one is about Charlotte Figi and her battle with Dravet syndrome, and how the Stanley brothers of Charlotte's Web and Realm of Caring came to help her family out. And that's where the Charlotte's Web CBD tincture first got its start, and its big name was through Dr. Sanjay Gupta's Weed series. So I highly recommend that. That's kind of what flipped the switch for me. And when I approached my husband, he was skeptical, but he knows me well enough that he's not going to dissuade me from anything that I've kind of got my sights on.
Most men cannot dissuade
He's smart.
mothers.
He's smart. He knows better. And, he came around too and watched the weed series, and I was just sharing all this information that I was learning. And he's like, okay, well, let's do this. And I was able to find a mom who was just a few steps ahead of me in this process. She kind of took me under her wing. I saw her on TV, and I just messaged her on Facebook. Honestly, that's how it came to be. And I kind of never looked back. I had a dispensary that was really instrumental in helping us figure this out. They had a medical director who was amazing, and again took us under their wing, and just kind of guided us with dosing and all of that stuff. And she stopped having nighttime seizures as soon as we started cannabis.
Immediately.
We had also started a gluten-free diet around that same time, and that had stopped her daytime seizures. She went 2 years with only having one seizure. And she was on cannabis, a gluten-free diet, and her conventional pharmaceuticals.
So how do you dose or take cannabis in that form? She's not obviously lighting up a joint and getting high.
I pass her the joint after I take some for myself. No, if I had a nickel for every time someone asked me that, does she smoke? No, she doesn't.
That's a ridiculous
smoke.
question. Of course, we're not going to hand a lit joint to our children.
No, and there's a time and a place for everything, but she's not there yet. She's told me that herself, not that I've offered it to her. But she actually right now takes it in the flower format that you would smoke, except I prepare it at home and I encapsulate it. I measure it out and I encapsulate it. So she swallows a capsule, and it's full of that flower material that most people would smoke. And her dose, it's really easy to dose out if you've got a basic understanding of math, which I know is a little more abstract for some people, but it's basically a good starting place is 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight. So 1 milligram of CBD, which is what is best used for seizures, per kilogram of body weight. So if you have a child who is, say, 110 pounds, that's about 50 kilograms of body weight, she would start on about 50 milligrams of CBD daily.
And you said that there was a medical director at this dispensary that helped you, but how do you need a prescription for this because it's a medical-based marijuana? Obviously, Arizona does allow medical marijuana. Some people have it for pain.
Yes.
So did you have to have a physician write a prescription, or was the medical director able to?
So the interesting thing the interesting thing about cannabis is that you don't need a prescription. You're not going to be able to get a prescription. That's just not how it works. It's trial and error, but if you think about it, a lot of pharmaceuticals are trial and error. So this is trial and error, and if you do a little research and going into the dispensary that I need CBD because that's what works for seizures, then you've got a leg up. If you can find naturopathic doctors or other people, again, they don't need the letters behind their name, that know cannabis, get all the information you can. There's still not a lot of information out there, and you have to know who to ask and be able to trust those people. It's hard because there's a lot of misinformation out there about cannabis, as you can imagine.
Well, so we've got all of these CBD companies that are all over. I mean, I saw someone selling it on the side of Scottsdale Road under a tent. I would never get CBD on the side of a road.
There's not many things that get on the side
or jerky.
Yeah.
But I have been in one of these facilities, and you can get CBD pens or oils for stress or anxiety.
Absolutely.
Is there a difference between that and the CBD? Because you said you encapsulate it. Is there a different process between just walking in and getting a pen? You can inhale these pens. They do not make you high. They've got oils. It's just a calming.
It really is. It's great for anxiety. I call it nature Xanax. And I can say that because I've taken Xanax in the past. I love Xanax. And it just kind of melts away your anxiety. So the vape pen, is great for situational anxiety, and it just kind of melts it away for me. And they have edibles, too, that you can use. And I think they're fantastic tools. I really do. The thing you need to be aware of when you're purchasing CBD or any cannabis is that you want to make sure that their cannabis or their CBD, their product has been tested, and you want to see those test results. And if they can't show you that, then you need to walk out and go to a place that does. So that CBD on the side of the road, I I wouldn't stop just because it's CBD out of the side of the road. It's like that guy that sold Baja shrimp, out of the back of his van on Scottsdale Road. Like, no, I'm just not going to do that. Bonsai trees, okay. Baja shrimp and CBD, not so much. Make sure it's tested and see those testing results. There are companies out there that might not have the testing results readily available, but they've got the batch number on their product and you can look it up on their website. That's great because you want to make sure that if you're getting a bottle with 1,000 milligrams of CBD, that there's in fact 1,000 milligrams of CBD in that bottle, because accurate dosing is key for epilepsy.
And so what format? And so you said you're getting it in a flower-based powder?
No, so it looks like the bud that you would smoke. If you go.
Oh, you meant like flower as in a plant flower?
Yeah, the flower. I'm sorry.
I was thinking
like
of what you bake
flour.
bread with.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry. Like flour, like FLOWER. Like what you would smoke. So I grind that up. Now, Emma needs a card. Emma has her patient card, and this allows her to be able to use products that have THC. Now, THC is not scary. It does not necessarily make you high. Emma's not walking around high, but THC is it's the main cannabinoid found in the cannabis plant. CBD is the second most abundant cannabinoid, and they work really well together. They're very synergistic, and they help each other out. So they're both very important to her regimen. And in order to be able to get that flower, because there is THC, she needs that patient card. There are CBD products that you don't need a patient card for. You can get tinctures, those vape pens, edibles, and you don't need a patient card for that. And that is a perfectly reasonable way to start using cannabis, is with CBD that you can get over the counter. Again, just make sure you have either you have the testing results or you're able to get those.
What's the financial cost to get the flower?
The flower, the cannabis. So on average, epilepsy patients will spend anywhere between $300 and $500 per month to treat their epilepsy with cannabis. That's on average from the many people I've talked to. So there's a big range because, again, it depends on the child's or the person's weight, because we're dosing based on weight. And it depends on how are they using it. Tinctures can be costly. 1,000 milligrams of a really reputable tincture or a CBD company that I know of, it costs $72 for 1,000 milligrams. And again, if they're using 50 milligrams per day, it's going to go quickly.
And how often are you having to buy it? Like, what's the shelf life of? Because it's a plant.
It is a plant, and it's been prepared. But shelf life for cannabis in general is about a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for tinctures, I keep them in a dark, cool kitchen cabinet. For the flower that I purchased for her, if I've got extra on hand, I just toss it in the freezer.
And what did you call it? The
tincture.
Tincture?
Tincture. So tincture is basically a cannabis oil that's diluted with another carrier oil, like coconut oil, or olive oil, glycerin, something like that. It's diluted.
And what do you use that separate from the flour that you grind up?
So
or do you combine it?
I don't.
In the capsule?
So Emma only takes the tincture now if she has had a seizure and she's recovering from it. Usually after a seizure, she'll have a headache. And so I'll give her the tincture under the tongue to see if that helps take away the headache. If it doesn't, within a certain amount of time, I'll just give her some Advil, but I prefer to treat her naturally if possible.
But I wonder what the cost would be if she had some sort of prescription, from a traditional doctor to treat her seizures.
Yeah.
What the cost that might
I know.
be.
I don't even know, because she takes Devalproex right now. And I don't know what that is because insurance is covering it. But yeah, it would be ridiculous.
And so how many years has she
So she's been on cannabis now for 5.5 years. And so shortly after she started is when I really noticed a difference, and I decided that I needed to be that voice for other parents who were wanting to look into this but didn't know where to start, or were scared but didn't know who to talk to, or just someone who needed, just to get a little, what am I trying to say? Someone who needed to get a little bit more courage. to step into a journey that has such a negative stigma around it.
Well, you're brave. That's why you're here, because you're a warrior.
Well, I just, you know what, I'm 41, and the older I get, the less I care what people think, to be honest.
We all do.
Right? My filter is thinner and thinner as years go on.
But I would have to say, and even though I don't see Emma all the time, I mean, when I do see her, she is transformed over the last 5 years. Yeah. I mean, obviously the kids mature, and they change just by growing older, but I mean, she definitely looks healthy.
She's healthy. She was on, when we first started this, she was on Risperidol, which is a mood medication, which worked really, really well for her. But it put 30 pounds on her in 3 years. And as a 6 to 9 year old, that is a lot of weight. And so within the first 3 months, I was able to get her off of Risperidol when we were on cannabis. And so I really, attribute that just to the amazing abilities that cannabis has. It's not just for seizures. And we noticed the seizures that disappeared quickly, but what we didn't expect was for her to blossom behaviorally, verbally, academically, cognitively. I mean, she just the fog lifted. That's what people would tell us is, wow, what did you guys do with Emma? Like, the fog is lifted. She's a new little girl. I'm like, well, actually, she's on cannabis, and it's just helped her tremendously.
So I follow you on Facebook, and I've seen that you've kind of been on this Cannabis Crusade.
Yeah.
To learn more for yourself. You've been very actually politically correct, because you aren't cramming it down everybody's throat.
No.
But I think you're offering yourself up as a resource in case parents have questions. You know, you always pay it forward or pay it back, because we all have to help each other out.
For sure.
We're all figuring out what we need to do on our journey. What could you recommend to someone who wants to explore this and they're not in Arizona, or they're maybe in an unfriendly state that hasn't embraced cannabis uses? I mean, starting with I can't remember
Sanjay Gupta's weed series. Yeah, I would definitely start there. Again, and start doing that research online. It's not all great research. There's not a lot out there because it's still federally illegal. So, you still have to kind of be careful to what you're reading online. But Sanjay Gupta's weed series, I think, is a fantastic place to start.
So it's not federally regulated?
It's not federally regulated. It's federally illegal. You cannot travel with it. I mean, there's a whole host of things that you cannot do.
You can't travel with it?
CBD you can. It's not federally illegal anymore, but THC you definitely cannot. I mean, you can't even go across state lines with it.
Okay. I'm not going to ask the next question.
Thank you.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
I just found a whole pile of pills.
It's exactly what she needed. What do you know?
Oh, the world has so many worse things to worry about.
Really. But it's just been a really great avenue for me to help other parents become empowered. And parents are so nervous and scared trying this. And I'm like, I get that, because I was the exact same way. But after a while, I became empowered. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm taking her healthcare back into my control, my hands. And I'm not saying F you to the doctors, because there's a time and a place for Western medicine, just as there is Eastern medicine. And in fact, these doctors are finally coming around to seeing that cannabis can be a useful tool in the toolbox. That's what we say. It's not a magic bullet, but it can definitely be a useful tool in the toolbox. And these epileptologists and neurologists are finally coming around and saying, you know what, you're right. And I always recommend parents, if their child is with a doctor who isn't open to it, and not just cannabis, but anything that they might not be open to, find another doctor. This doctor's working for you. It's not the other way around.
Well, and I think, as with any intervention, what works for one individual is not going to work for another individual. I see that a lot just in the weight loss industry, right? There's all these different diet plans, and I have friends that swear by keto, and I actually ended up having really high cholesterol because of keto.
Right.
So I just think that keeping an open mind and being just willing to try things, and unfortunately, it is going to be a lot of work. I think you probably have to document. You have to really like think about, did this work? Did I give a dose of this at some time and then, I noticed this improvement? It's kind of like the process of food elimination. I mean, you have to keep a diary.
You have to keep a diary. I have a 3-ring binder that is full of her past seizures, and it's also full of charts of the medications that we've changed, dosages or strains or whatever. And so, keeping really good notes is key to finding the success and finding what works for your child. Absolutely.
Oh, well, I just got chills. I feel like, seizures are no joke.
No.
And I've always been grateful that while my daughter has severe cognitive and developmental delays, she except for the first few months of her life, I didn't worry about her dying. And seizures are, life-threatening and life-limiting.
Yes.
So she's just in a totally different place. You did such a good job, Mom.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey to be a part of, and I love sharing her story because I feel like it can, bring hope to other parents, and that's what I want to do, is just encourage other parents to stick with their mama's gut instinct, because it's a powerful tool, right?
Right.
We need
I know.
to tap into that
and
use it for the amazing tool that it is. And so cannabis has just been one of those unexpected. If you had told me 6 years ago that I would be working in the cannabis industry, I would have told you to light up another joint because you're high or whatever. It's been an amazing journey, and one that I never ever expected. But it's been a privilege and an honor to be in this place where I can help other parents. And, I've had amazing opportunities to speak not only around the state, but around the country, to speak at the state capitol, to do numerous radio and TV interviews, and just be able to use Emma's story to help other people is now my goal, I guess, mission.
That's what we're all here for.
Absolutely.
So take a little bit of the load off of everybody else, because, there's so much information today that we didn't have when our kids were little. And so we had to figure a lot on our own.
Yeah.
Well, the kids being born today, their parents are going to run into something that isn't developed yet or targeted yet. So I think it's going to be a constant cycle of research and trial and patience and perseverance.
Absolutely. It's never, we never stop. It's never a dull moment, right?
No, never.
So got to be on our toes.
Well, I am so proud of you. I'm proud to know you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And that you were willing to come on this pod today to talk about it, because I know how hard you've worked on this. And if this episode can just help one family and their conquering of seizures, then it was worthwhile.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, friends, that's it for this one. Whoop whoop to all out there. Stay true to your warrior selves. Bye.